And now Work Matters with Julie Mann.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to that show that asks the question, does work matter? And if it does, why? The why is so important when we think about work because there's all of, we go to work, we have a job, and then there's all of this stuff that kind of goes around in the background. And all of that kind of adds to the why. It adds to why you like where you're at. It adds to the why of, why do you like even just from your career area? Why do you like where you're at? Why do you like what you're doing? And so all of those fun whys are the things that we like to talk about when we're on the show. So today I'm excited that we are going to talk about team appreciation. And, regardless of where you're at, you're working either in a team, leading a team, you're part of a team, pretty much true personally and professionally, either way. So on the show, we have Andrew Kersjes, who is an expert on this stuff. And Andrew is an employee experience partner with a company called RecogNation. And they're, from a company perspective, I'll let you talk about Andrew, but, I really like how they help companies kind of package and deliver forms of recognition to employees so that it's easy, it's something that becomes part of the culture, which is what we just talked about in an earlier segment. But this time we're going to talk more about the team side of things. So, Andrew, thank you.
Thank you
for joining us. So let's talk about kind of that, what's the difference between team recognition versus individual recognition? And do you know your team? I think there's a lot just packed in those couple of questions. So I'll
I think
toss it over to you and you can take it from there.
That team appreciation is so important. Every team is like a family, like a marriage. Like you got the kids, you got the mom, the dad, the dog, the brother, the sister, the dog. It is this ecosystem of people working together for a common goal.
Right.
But with any family, there needs to be appreciation. They crave it. They crave the emotional connections to say thanks. I appreciate you. I recognize you. I want to keep doing this with you. And doing this with you in a way that either drives goals, you think of work, or just drives life. Like, how do we enjoy life together? So you think of your team. Like, do you know your team?
Right.
Well, everybody's different. Like,
okay, so I'm going to start. What do you mean by when you say, do you know your team? Because I think a lot of times people go, well, yeah, it's Bob, it's Sue, it's Joe, it's right. But when you say, do you know your team, I think you've got a deeper question behind, do you know your team? It's my guess.
Little bit. Like, what makes your team tick?
There you go.
How do you get your team excited? Is it coffee? Is it just listening to them talk? Like, personally, there's been different. You look at my career over the years, I feel like the way I like appreciation has evolved year over year. When I was first coming up, you think like 10 years ago, I loved just coaching. Like, sit down and teach me how you would say this. Now I don't like any coaching anymore. It's like, I got this down. Don't coach me. But there's a lot of things. Like, everybody has something different, and it's just being connected with your team. It drives that culture. And if you don't have that connection, your team, they start to fizzle. I think right now it's a tough time for teams. Everybody's spread out more than ever. Yeah. I just had lunch the other day. Imagine lunch. Lunch is today's time.
Wow.
And you're sitting down with this team of coworkers, and it was so fun to see them connect because they've been working remote now for months.
Right.
And just watching the two of them interact for probably 5 minutes, they're asking each other questions like, what have you been doing? What do you mean? And it's fun to see them reconnect. And you could just tell they were lighting up. Like, it was making their day. And they were excited to talk about it. Everybody's excited to talk. Right. And giving that team appreciation keeps people excited.
So if you go back to your example of what makes the team tick and you use that example. So the example for that group is that coming together, that collaboration is part of, I was to say about that team, right? That collaboration, that togetherness is a thing that makes that team tick. So you can kind of hook onto that as this is one thing for my team.
It was so easy to see. You think 2019, you think last year, knowing how your teams tick was easy to see because they're all together. You can see what's pumping, what's clicking. Now it's kind of guesswork. Yeah. I hate to say it, but it's kind of guesswork of how do we engage my team? And what is the language of my team? Some team members like to be recognized. You think of like the 5 love language. Most people have read the book.
Right.
But then there's languages of appreciation. They put a spin on that book. What are the languages to appreciate? And it's kind of the same concepts like words of affirmation. Does this employee like handwritten notes? Do they like a quick email that just says, thanks, you did a good job? Or are they more of a like acts of service? Do I need to do something for them? Get them coffee, help them with a project? What gets them feel motivated?
Right.
Or is it gifts? Do I need to put that little bogey, that token of, hey, you do X, I'm going to give you Y. You get $100. You get a tumbler. You get something cool to say, great job. So just appreciating the different ways and quality time. I think of myself, quality time is mine. I like spending one-on-one time with the supervisors, doing something fun. Let's go get a drink. Let's go get dinner. Let's go golfing.
Yeah.
Let's get to know each other. I'm outgoing. I like that.
No.
That personal interaction. Like let's go do something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm a doer. Yeah. I'm like, if we need to talk about something, let's do it.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Yeah.
So it's knowing your team. How do we stay connected? It all comes back to connection and communication.
So does team appreciation, sorry, I just interrupted you, I'm sorry. So team appreciation versus individual appreciation, recognition. So how does that look differently? So I'm listening to this podcast. I'm like, okay, so what does that look like differently than an individual kind of appreciation space?
I say it's kind of are one-on-one.
Okay.
Because in order to keep the whole team engaged, you kind of have to recognize everybody differently. You have to appreciate differently.
And do you drive unity? So I think about softball, right? So softball team, right? One of the things that makes them a team is they've all got the same jersey or, uniform. So do you need to think about that when you're thinking about team appreciation? Do you need to think about, I need to appreciate everybody individually? And I'm asking this question honestly, because you're the expert, right? Do I need to appreciate everybody individually, but then do I need to recognize the team through some other form of recognition for driving unity of the team? Did that question make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's always fair to say no.
No, that does. I would say a good team appreciation is recognizing people differently.
Okay.
But doing it in a team setting, because then, the team, they know people aren't dumb. They can see the psychology, and they know when a manager really cares. So what's the managing of people? Let's say you're the manager of said team. What's most impactful is when you know that manager knows your team. So he may recognize Johnny differently than he recognizes Susie. But seeing that, witnessing it, interacting with it is what makes the whole team tick. Like when you know your manager cares enough to be different, like, hey, let's give everybody a Starbucks gift card. I hate coffee. I'm like, that's kind of rude, boss.
Right. I don't do coffee.
Don't recognize us all the same. We're different people.
Right.
And it's knowing the difference, knowing your team, whether you're the coworker, the peer, or the boss. I think of my team. There's several people that are different. They like to tell stories. They like to talk about their family. They just like to listen and get a little bit of input. And then there's others that are like, hey, coach me. And it's like, well, that's how I help them. That's how I recognize them. How I provide that appreciation. It's different for each team member, even just from the peer level.
Right.
Everybody's got a little different emotions.
Right.
Like I got to address them differently than I address them. Like they want it hard. They want to just know give it to me straight. Right. And there's others who are like, sugarcoat it for me. Right. I'm a sugarcoater. I want it gentle.
Right.
So it's tough to answer your question. Individual team appreciation comes through individual recognition. Okay. Individual appreciation.
Which kind of goes to this, kind of those principles of leadership, right? Yeah. So, and being able to, I think one of the things I like that you kind of said, I'm going to go back to that, is just the ability for the leader to be seen, to know their people well enough to recognize differently. And the fact that is something that people pick up on. And, I think when you go to leadership, there's so much of leadership that is driven by action.
Yeah.
And so when you think about that team appreciation space, if the leader takes the position that this is important and that I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it in front of other people where it's comfortable to do that, right? And know that person. I think that those are all some of those things that when I think about team, no matter what part of the member of the team that you are, there's a component that there's a leader, right? Every team has a captain, a leader, a something, right? And so how does that person drive team appreciation through action? And then there's the team that can appreciate each other, which can create another level of interaction and bonding as well.
What I'm finding over the you think of culture over the years, it's always been top down. Recognition it's always kind of been top down driven. Managers are so busy these days, so many things, and most organizations I feel are ramping up right now. Like they've taken, like they are hiring like crazy. They're strategizing for the next year. They're doing everything. They forget.
Right.
So I know we're going to talk later about staying front of mind, but it's one of those things of how do we help managers do it more frequently? And the appreciation is important. And the peer recognition is probably the thing we're finding most impactful. When you take the time to find your peer and shout it out,
right?
Make the supervisors aware of so-and-so did this. It was awesome. You missed it. You were in meetings all day.
Right.
But they did this and it was awesome. I got to tell you about it. Recognizing your team from the team perspective.
Yeah.
I feel like that's missed by most organizations.
Well, and a lot of like the HRIS systems even are coming out with kind of like shout out mechanisms within their systems. So, that people can very easily, I think we talked about earlier was, how do you make recognition easy? And so a lot of the HRIS systems, the payroll HR system is when I think of HRIS systems, but a lot of them are putting those shout out tools in there. So you can recognize and send a note over to a peer and say, hey, that was a really good job, or, so again, making it easy, which we talked about is an important part of it. Right?
And in front of mind, I know we do biweekly one-on-ones at our company. We've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Extremely impactful. Just a quick calibration with your supervisor biweekly. One of the first questions they always ask is, who would you like to recognize? Who do you appreciate right now? And if I don't think about it, I often don't. But when he makes me answer that question,
that's a good one.
I always come up with one or two people. Like,
right.
Hey, now that you think of that, I do need to recognize Amber. She's always on point with this. And I never say thanks. I just rely on her to do it for me every time. But I never say thanks. It's that team appreciation.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And keeping it front of mind.
Does it come across sincere? So if it's prompted.
It still does, because the end recipient doesn't know about. I was prompted. That my boss asks me. I don't go to him and say.
Oh, so you're not standing around and you do let's go around the table and talk about what we appreciate about each other. Or
individual one-on-ones with the boss, in a sense.
That's great. That's great.
Then when you actually address the team, it comes off very sincere. Hey, thanks. I really appreciate every time you do this for me.
Right. Well, and I think the key component to that, I mean, this is kind of like Dale Carnegie appreciation stuff, but you've got to be specific, right? When you say, hey, man, that was a really great job. It feels good, right? But when you say, hey, you really knocked it out of the park when you compiled that Excel analysis on XYZ and it was that complicated and, really helped us get to this point a lot faster. Yeah. Thank you. That's a different kind of appreciation, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, oh.
Being
being
specific.
I did pretty good on a spreadsheet. How do you do good work on a spreadsheet?
That's coming from those that like spreadsheets are hard sometimes.
Oh my gosh. Oh yeah, they're very hard.
Well, some people are able to do. So we have some business analysts on our walls.
And they make it so easy. Oh my gosh.
The formulas that they know. It's like, man, I wish I had a degree just in Excel.
If I'm doing a hard Excel project, people know, because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're hard.
The what if formulas, the pivot tips,
right, all that kind of stuff.
I love that team.
Yes,
I'm a data guy. I like the data. So I give a lot of appreciation to the team that does the data. Yeah, because otherwise I stare at the sheets all day.
And so going back to team recognition and thinking about your company recognition, do you see trend going towards more team appreciation? I don't know, what you call it, products, programs, whatever you guys would call that. Do you see that that's starting to be more of a trend? Has it been a trend and it's just kind of still continuing? Where do you see kind of trend lines going relative to appreciation?
I'd say it's been a trend for a couple of years now.
To do that team.
Yeah, that word engagement has been kind of that cliche word for years now, and everybody's tying to engagement. Like, how do we engage staff? And appreciation has always been that thing, and it's proven that peer and team appreciation is so impactful. It can't just be organizational driven. Can't just be every 5 years. Can't just be when they're onboarded. It needs to be authentic. It needs to be specific to these team members. What do they like? Do they like gifts? Then let's give them some gifts. Everybody's different.
How do you handle consistency in that? Oh, we don't have that much time. But I think that's another thing. It's just How do you, when you think about how you do that, how do you drive consistency? How do you drive the fact that that happens?
So there's so many tools.
Yeah.
So many tools in place to help organizations. You Google it. It's amazing what is out there.
Right.
It would be tough to find my company when you Google it. RecogNation, as you noted.
Yeah.
So many times Google autocorrects it to recognition.
Yeah. I know. It always took me a while to get the company name.
But there's so much out there to help.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sorry to throw like a question at you with like 10 seconds to go.
No, you're good.
But anyway, thank you so much. This is great discussion. For everybody listening, just know that team appreciation, teams are important. Teams are what drive business results. Teams are what get us there. And so take that time and be sure that you appreciate the individual uniquely and your team as well. So, Andrew, thanks for joining us. For everybody listening out there, have a great day. Let's be sure that we make today happen. We have an impact on tomorrow, but most importantly, let's be sure that work matters.